let's do it. Hi, everyone. So excited to have you here with us today, especially when we've got such an honorable, terrific guest list with Karl Dakin and with Cohen. And love to have everybody participate. Chat's wide open, and we depend on chat to really drive relevance and create a lot of quality takeaways. And that makes me, Karl, and Cohen feel very gratified if we can help others and also help ourselves by learning through others. We've already got some comments. Look who's here. We were just talking about Omar. Omar, great to see you. I was just commenting to Karl. Although I had a conflict, I'll actually watch the show later on. And Omar has a great show that really goes into getting to know people better, and what you don't know about that person. I was on the show, it really does work. Second comment from Omar is good to see Karl in my program yesterday, and hopefully a lot of other people were glad to see Karl, and that's how we can extend our reach into other audiences that may not be that familiar to us, but through other people that know us. With that said, let's turn it over to Karl. Karl can bring us a little bit up to date and his first initial thoughts, I guess first and initial are the same thing, on success.
Not necessarily, Don. My first and initial could be different. And, being a little bit of a Gemini with multiple personalities, we'll see how this works out. But I'm in between fundraisers this week, and part of the work that I do in helping people raise funding as my primary business as a coach, I also engage in fundraisers. So I was deep into a fundraiser on Saturday night and up again early doing cleanup post event stuff. And then, as I was sharing earlier, this is that time of the year when I jump off a building. So on Friday, I will go 200 feet off of McGregor Square here in Denver. I will be using ropes. So when I define success, I'll have one more metric for us to use, which is I reach the ground safely. But for those who are living one day at a time, and as we get older, that becomes a more important kind of adage. There's certain things I want to do today. If I get them done, I'll be successful. But I have put together my own 2024 goals, which is about time I got them together since we're getting into the back end of the
Oops.
Yeah, we're back. Just took a little bit of, here we go.
There we are. So now I'm on the right side of Don. Anyway, at least according to my picture. But in this, as I was saying, as I have end of day goals, end of week goals, end of year goals, and having goals is a way of measuring your success. Quite often we just kind of plunge forward, and too often that causes us to meander and go in directions that aren't necessarily the most efficient or getting us to where we really want to go.
Great. Makes sense. And with that, I'll turn it over to Cohen and get his first take.
Well, I find it fascinating because I think we're defining success as being on the right hand of the dawn this morning. So just to kind of get us in the mood, it seems like Kerry just joined us. So I figured that we'd start off with some of our own jokes as he starts off with his as well. So yes, success. It's an exciting word to talk about on a Monday, especially as we look forward to a week and looking back on what we would consider success in the past week. I had the privilege, Don and Karl, of kicking off a whole new cycle with with an amazing program that I'm part of, and I'm facilitating full-time this year. And I'm really, really excited about it. It's with our Regional Economic Development Group up here. It's a leadership development program for those leaders that live and or work in the larger community of Adams County up here close to where I am in Colorado. And we're excited because it's almost a year-long program, and we have the opportunity to work with some growing, emerging leaders and help them develop both their leadership skills and their ability to execute from that, but also at the same time, being able to kind of help them network, help them grow the connections, and understand that leadership, it comes in a lot of different forms. And so success to me, as I was thinking about our topic of the day, is it comes with a quote that the way to reach your goals, the way to reach your success is to help enough people achieve theirs. And so to me, that's part of my servant leadership model and how I operate as a coach, as a teacher, as a consultant, and an author speaker.
Wow, you got it all going on, Con. And this choreography we're doing is planned. I grew up in Detroit, where Motown was big at the time, and all the Temptations and Four Tops would always have their dance moves that were always going on around the scenes. And actually, a fact, I grew up on the same block as Berry Gordy, who was the founder of Motown, and that was kind of early on. But I think what Karl and Con really identify is success, which may be sexual, but not on this program. It is really defined by what it is that really supports you and makes you stronger and better going forward. So many people, I think, initially think of success as how much money are you making? How big is your house? All these material quantifiable avenues instead of the qualitative elements, as far as, how happy are you? How satisfied are you? How comfortable are you? Today, I started re-listening to Dale Carnegie's book. And the biggest element that he really puts out there is focus on today. There's too many people who are carrying yesterday forward, worrying about tomorrow before it's here. And all you can do is what you're working with in the now and in the present, which can create a better future, more success. And I think success is something that people would appreciate or prefer to be sustainable, something that doesn't come today and is fleeting tomorrow and you have to retrieve it again. And I think it's a process. And most of it is getting happy with yourself, getting comfortable with yourself, not going into a game feeling like you're lacking something or have to compensate for something. And a lot of that has to do with what are your attributes? What are your talents? So many people aren't successful because they're not following what they're passionate about. They might be following what they're good at. They might be following what they've been told they should be doing. But I think freedom is a big element of success, whether it's financial freedom or time freedom or a combination of the two. And what makes you happy? Because you've also got a responsibility to the people around you, the people you lead, the people you live with, the people you interact with. Are you, like Con says, giving back? Are you supporting others? And I think that's really rewarding and gratifying, because you may not hit the target all the time yourself, but you might be able to help someone else, or at least take the time to acknowledge those people. And I think a lot of times it's encouragement that can lend itself to success. So without going too much into detail, it wouldn't be fair if we didn't mention Carrie's joke. What did birthday candles say to other candles? Don't birthdays just light you up? Well, that's pretty good. And following that, we've got our illustrious member of our cohort group, Harvey Tuck, who's setting the world on fire, puts the capital in success, the S at least. Hello, everyone. Good to be here to learn and share. Con, like the fact that we're now calling Don the Don. In the UK, fellows of Oxford and Cambridge University are known as Dons. They are people who love to share and nurture others. So seems appropriate. Well, Harvey demonstrates a lot of wonderful qualities of success, which is sincerity, authenticity, and the ability to identify the best in others and support that. Too many people are self-focused, reliant in a way that cuts them off from opportunities with others and for others. So thank you, Harvey. Never stop to mention Harvey has his Tuesday franchise show following my show, and also has his franchise brand show. And I can't wait to get with him Thursday and catching up in our cohort group so we can share each other's knowledge and experience in the last few weeks to help each other. With that, Karl, back to you.
Yeah, so in defining success, I think that as you described it, Don, too often people define success strictly to themselves. And even though they do it poorly because they're borrowing everybody else's goals or everybody else's ideas of success to apply to themselves, they basically need to be looking at how they work with others. And to Khan's point, if you're going to raise funding, you have to have a large group of people who support you in what you're trying to do. And therefore, essentially, you're trying to share your success via an investment vehicle with others. It's not about going down to the ATM where everybody's throwing money at you just because you're you. It's the other way around. You're trying to figure out how you can help others, help your customers with new products and services, help your investors by giving them a return on that investment, whether it's monetary or non-monetary. And along that path, there will be people that you can help, such as charities, your community, the larger social groups in which you belong. And you need to understand their goals, what is success to them. And you have to then start figuring out my success, my team's success, my community's success, and figure out how you can contribute to all those things.
Perfect. I like that. Khan.
Wow. Karl really is raising the bar here. Okay, so let's jump in from that perspective and talk a little bit more, because I want to draw on one thing that he said. And he says, however they define it, the success piece. And I think that's very, very important. A lot of people go through life and they strive for things that others or society or their family, whoever, has told them what success looks like. But we see that more and more people are waking up to the point that they need to define success for themselves. Part of the reason why we are struggling with mental health issues, with other issues, is because people are put in situations that are no win for them. Even if they succeed according to others' definition, they're losing, and they're losing themselves, and they're compromising. Part of the reason why we're seeing now such an explosion in the recent years of people trying to strive out and do their own thing or carve their own niche in this world is because they're trying to redefine what success means to them. I mean, I look at us here as entrepreneurs, as business leaders in our own right. And part of how I define it, and I don't know, I'll open it up to you guys as well, is, to me, professional success means to be able to work on what I want, when I want, where I want, and with whom I want. I mean, that is true freedom to me, to be able to do that and be able to function in my zone of genius, where I'm most passionate about, where I can make the biggest contribution, because that's what my God-given talents are and skills, and being able to do that in a way that makes a difference in this world and for those that I serve. That, to me, is a true measure of success in so many ways. And oh, by the way, I can make a good living for myself and my family to be able to support them, because that's important as well. I don't do this as a hobby. I do this to make sure that I can carve out a living while serving others. And I think those things are not mutually exclusive like many people think. You can still make a good living from this piece, doing what you're passionate about while helping others and making a contribution in our society. So we can redefine success for ourselves, and we should. And we should pause for a moment, take the time to really ask that question: what do I really want? What really makes me happy? What really excites me and lights that fire inside me? Because when you find that, it doesn't really feel like work. It re-energizes, it's self-sustaining. And that allows us to be successful emotionally, mentally, from a financial standpoint, physical standpoint, all of those things. The cornerstone of that is that alignment of what's most important to us.
Yeah, those are perfect, excellent insights, and I couldn't agree more. What I've learned, and luckily learned early, was balance. You know, especially when you're a high performance individual and you could really exceed expectations, but does it come at a cost to other areas of your life? Is your health up to scratch? Is your relationships? Are you in good stead with your family?
Mhm.
You know, and where is the future? And, you know, success for oneself is easier to obtain than success for your, let's say, group that you're part of. Could be your friends, your family, your work associates. And the other thing is, how do you show up? Not only how do you perform. When you show up, are people excited to see you? Do you see smiles come on their face? Do you see warm greetings? Or is it like, okay, we're going to get a lot out, but it's not what it could be? And you can't really understand what success is until you really get to know and understand what people around you are really looking for themselves. Are you getting successful by climbing on everybody else's back? Or you're bringing people with you, or even bringing people up with you? And I think, you know, what's good for you is good for others. In the beginning, you were looking for a helping hand. You were looking for a mentor, someone to take you aside and spend some extra time with you. Are you returning that favor? Because if it's good for you, it's good for people like you. And money and fame and all that stuff is so fleeting at times. It's so transient, you know, where it comes and then it goes, and, you know, and it will come and go, especially if you're pushing some of the limits. You know, if you're playing it safe, you can probably lock down into a secure place. And if someone has no ambition, no desire to do better, or is really very humble and modest and and is happy, because what one person's happiness may not be another's. You know, I mean, when I with my kids, it was always like, whatever makes you happy is what you should do. You know, I don't care if you're this or that. If you wake up and can't wait for Mondays instead of praying for Fridays every day, you know, there's no reason to escape a reality that can be changed. And how you feel will tell you what you should continue to do. And there is no one thing anymore. It isn't one office building that you go to and do your work and come home. There's so many people that have 3, 4, 5 things going on at the same time, and they're smart, not putting all their eggs in one basket. Plus, variety always helps. If you're doing too much of this, it's nice to switch gears over to that. It's great to be not time dependent, not place dependent, you know, and in a day you could be doing 4 or 5 different things and enjoying every one of them. And, you know, you always want to leave something more for the next day. You know, they always say you're better off leaving people wanting more than wishing there was less after you're done. You know, so timing, positioning has a lot to do with it. And just as importantly, feedback. Sincerely ask, well, how did I do? What could I have done? What is it that you're looking for? Because why guess? And why not integrate and incorporate? Because people who participate have a more vested interest in the process, in the result. And you never know, maybe you could learn a lot more from anybody, right? Because everybody's still spending their 24/7 doing whatever they're doing. And if they're doing things you're not doing, they're learning about things you're not. You know, again, it might be at a different situation, but it's dynamic, is what I want to say. And it's up to you. Every day is the beginning of a new day and a new day going forward. So we've got Jason here. Want to recognize Jason. Jason will be with us this Thursday with Kelly. Good morning, gentlemen. Wake up on a Monday morning, West Coast, to see this much wisdom on my screen and in the community comments. Great way to start your week, Jason. So happy to have you, Jason. You know, one thing I'd like to say is everybody in our cohort group and everybody really close to it have one thing in common. They're good people. They have a good heart, and they want to do better for themselves and take people with them. And I think that's so important. You know, they always say you're the factor of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Who are those 5 people? And are they, some of them, a little bit stale and need to be refreshed with newer people? So I think those are kind of keys that one can look around and say, how can I make things better for myself and the people around me? Karl, I know you're a dynamic Renaissance man who is always diving into new things and doesn't show a lot of fear towards learning what's new and exciting. How did you ever get that way, Karl?
That sounds like a question that comes from Omar off of his show yesterday. He's asking you all kinds of personal questions, and and I'm thinking like I'll be prepared because I'm just going to answer the questions, and then Omar hits me with a question. I'm going, okay, now I'm going to have to be contemplative of what he just asked, try to give an accurate answer. The I enjoy solving puzzles. I guess I just found out that I'm truly an entrepreneur. I'm always trying to make the glass not half full or half empty, but finding a better glass to fit the situation. Every time I see something, I ask the question: can it be made better? Can we be better? Can the community be made better? And my mind just can't constantly goes through that. I think that everyone has to find something that they're comfortable with without being too comfortable. And one of the challenges of being happy is to realize your limits, as they say, and at the same time know where you have the ability to develop your skills, your relationships, and to be more than you are today. I gave up wanting hair a long time ago. It became an impossible task. And with a 6-inch vertical leap, I gave up going out for the NBA and becoming a basketball player. And early in my career, people told me I should never take up singing because I'm beyond talent. I'm like a deficit in that category. So if I got up in the morning and said I wanted to be an opera singer, I would have set for myself an unrealistic goal, one that's really not attainable. If I decide that I want to do something that is a skill or something I can learn and grow over time, and I decide that's where I want to commit part of my time, then that becomes a realistic thing. It may not be a short-term outcome. It may not be something I can do tomorrow. It may take years to develop that. And person has to look at themselves and know themselves, see where they kind of fit in the world, how they fit in relationships with other people, and then out of setting their goals, looking forward to what they're going to do something that you enjoy, but do something that helps others, and you'll find something that you match up with.
Quality comments. Very good, Karl. Appreciate it. Con?
Listening to you guys, it reminds me of a story that I'm going to paraphrase a little bit and kind of take some liberties with. But the gist of it is this. There is an older gentleman on a Greek island sitting there in the afternoon on a sunny day under the trees, sipping on his ouzo with some olives in olive oil, dipping in there, some seafood, munching around. And an American businessman happens to be touring the island on vacation and comes by. So the two of them strike up a conversation. The old Greek guy invites him over to sit down with him at the table. And they start a conversation talking about life, about different things. He shares his food and his drinks with him. And the American businessman says, "My God, these are the best olives I've ever tasted in my life. Where are they from?" He says, "Right here from my trees." He's like, "Wow. Have you ever thought about really, packaging these and selling them?" He says, "Why?" He's like, "Well, you can make money." He said, "Why?" He's like, "Well, so you can make money and you can maybe buy more equipment, harvest more olives, and then maybe even dominate the market here." He says, "Why?" Because once you do that, then you can export. People in the US would love these olives. They would love these. I mean, we look for these kind of natural foods. He says, people would pay you a fortune. He says, "Okay, so Why? What does that benefit me? He's like, well, at that point, he says, you can work hard, you can hire staff, you can have a whole production line, you can do all of these different things. And then eventually you make enough money so you can retire and kind of go and relax and enjoy the rest of your life. He says, like what? Like sitting under the olive tree and sipping my thing in the afternoon and having an olive here. So it just goes to show that sometimes we strive for things only to come full circle. And if we had just asked the question from the beginning, we probably would have been in a better place. We wouldn't have wasted all those years and times pursuing things that aren't as important to us. And so that's the story that I think resonates with me a lot of times when I think about that, especially during my entrepreneurial journey. I mean, like many of you, I've come from a background where I spent my years cutting my teeth in a corporate environment, in a very high stakes corporate environment, in companies as big as 100,000 employees spread over 100 countries that had a budget that was equal to some small countries. So I've been there, done that. I have the t-shirt to show for it. And now I'm much happier being able to operate the way I do in a much more agile environment. Many entrepreneurs, I mean, I sometimes I'm coach and mentor younger people or people starting out, and they ask me a lot of these questions. And I said, look, it's important for you, like the Don said about balance. When you shoot for something, you say, okay, I want to make this much money. Always keep in mind that there needs to be a spec limit on both ends of that, because scaling up has greater expectations. Sometimes you need bigger office, more staff, more things. That's when you call Karl and says, you know what, Karl, I need financial support here. I need some investment funds in here. If that's what you want, so be it. But understand that that comes with greater expectations. So we need to understand what's the minimum that we need and what's the maximum that we're willing to achieve based on our lifestyle choices and the true success that we define in that. Is it worth the time away from my family? Is it worth the time away from the things that I love and the people that I love? Those are some of the things that we need to look at.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story and great wisdom that hopefully people can appreciate, because more creates more of something else, right? And sometimes what do you actually need versus what's nice to have? Because as you go up on that ladder, it's going to cost more time. It's going to cost more attention. And where is that time coming from? Where's that attention being taken from? And how much fun are you having? And there's that element of regret and guilt that some people end up having because they have to make a tough choice. Do I visit my kid's birthday party, or do I go try to get another client?
Right.
You know, and over time, they think they're doing everybody a favor because they're creating wonderful opportunities for their family, lifestyle opportunities. But is that what people are going to remember later on? How many people said, I never knew my dad? He was always gone, provided for us, was there when he was there. But, you know, you don't know that. You know, you don't know what you're into until you're out of it and you look back at it and really take it for what it is.
Right.
You know, and there's different stages of life. When you're starting out, you got more energy. You don't have as much responsibility. You can work long hours and not feel bad. But what is going to sustain you? What is going to allow you to look back at your life and say, I lived a rewarding life? You know, I could have done more. I could have made more. And a lot of that has to do with integrity too, right? There's a lot of people could shortcut things and come out ahead. But is that the legacy you want to leave behind? Versus, hey, he's a kind guy. He's an honest guy. He's a good guy. And I think most people forget about that in this go-go world that we live in. And especially now with social media, there is no peace. You know, I was talking the other day with somebody about a newspaper and how enjoyable on a Sunday it was to walk outside, get your newspaper, split up the sections. Somebody would take comics, someone would go sports, somebody might go business. And you'd sit around your table with a cup of coffee, leisurely, catch up. And that was all the media, all the news you needed. Now, get somebody's attention span for a few minutes. go to dinner with somebody and they're grabbing for their phone, and they feel if they don't have it, they're almost naked out there. And what last week was my grandson's birthday. So we went out to a nice dinner. I think I might have mentioned the story last week. And he says, I just saved a girl's life today. And he said it so nonchalantly. And I said, really, how did you do that? And he says, well, there's this girl in the class and everybody bullies her and makes fun of her. And she happened to tell me, I don't really want to be here tomorrow. And I said, so what'd you do? I said, well, let's take a little walk. And I walked with her and I listened to her. I mean, this is a 12-year-old kid. And I said, you really need to talk to somebody. There's people that can be a resource for you. And it made a difference for her. And you forget how people are living today. They weren't brought up the way we were. And it's hard. So if it's kids, if it's young adults, or if it's older adults, where is that compassion? Where is that lend an ear? Take a few moments. And to me, by him sharing that, showed how much more he had learned and how much more mature he was. Because he could have fell into the bully category, maybe made himself popular by hurting somebody's feelings. But everybody you work with has a life. Everybody you work with has a family. I always say, when I used to hire people, and I hired a lot of young people starting out, people who couldn't afford college but had desire, were willing to learn, and were teachable. And it made all the difference in the world, as opposed to somebody who thought they knew it all, somebody thought someone owed them their college education. So I think it's a bigger arena we live in, and we have to be conscious of situations that maybe weren't top of mind to us. With that, Harvey comes back. Con, I love that story. When we were kids, we asked why all the time. What a fantastic message, especially if you were thinking about your career as a younger person. And, growing up, family was always there to listen and was always there to tell stories. It used to be great to be around all the older people, and you hear a little bit about their life and where they came from and what they did. And it was a wonderful world to live in. They say stories sell, facts tell. Everybody wants to hear your story. No one really cares about the ingredients. Back to Harvey. Don, Cohen, I agree. It's so important to make decisions for the people you love. I have canceled 2 meetings and at my Thursday show to take my youngest son to his college open day. It's important to be there to spend time. Time is the most precious commodity we have. Success is that balance, right, or trying. And I think that really is the true message we need to share. Right? Is life is more than one sales call, and you can always make up for it. It's kind of funny growing up. My mother had a place in Florida, and I'd go there every year for about 40 years. And, I was younger naturally 40 years ago, but where the big hangout was with the pool and the clubhouse. And you'd have all these men, 70, 80 years old, who would hang out and go to the steam room. And you'd always hear about their life because they were starved for someone to talk to. And their whole goal was, when is my grandkids or my nephew going to come down so I can take them to TJ's for a week and, sport them around. And they always said about the hunting trip, the fishing trip, the Thanksgiving. I never heard in 1963 I got a bonus of so much. It was always about family. It was always about fun. And looking back, that's what they remembered. And what that taught me is why get to that point to know what's important when everybody's telling you already who lived through that what was important. So I think find a happy, successful person and figure out how they got there and what makes them tick. And that might help you try to, like Kana says, align better. Be more of who you're supposed to be at the time, and things will change and you'll change, and that's a good thing. With that said, I believe we're going to Karl. I'm trying to keep it sequence so I don't forget.
That's quite all right. You guys talk the rest of the hour. I'll just sit here and listen. It's interesting. I found late in my career that I was confusing my businesses with myself, and that I had so intertwined everything I was doing in my business that I basically people would go, well, if they'd asked me like Omar did yesterday, who are you? They would have pointed to my business because that was the only thing they had to measure me by. And every time one of those businesses didn't go the right direction, I found out I was starting over again, and it was like I had a clean slate on who I was because my entire character, or however people would describe me, had just disappeared with the business that had gone the wrong direction. And I realized I needed to do more intentional work to define myself and who I was separate from any business I was in. And I've seen a lot of this in people who take a job with a large company. And I go, do you have a LinkedIn profile? And they go, well, no, I don't need one. I work for XYZ company. And I'm going, okay, if you get fired tomorrow, who are you? And there's no answer because they are so embedded into that job profile that they don't really have their own persona, their own brand. They don't have any of these things. And I think this is something that we have taught people. It's a cultural thing. It's taught in business school that you're going to go out and work for somebody else. And you're going to put in your time. You're going to blood, sweat, and tears. You're going to climb the ladder. And when you get there, similar to Khan's story, then you'll be successful. And when you get to that level of success, you're going, this wasn't really worth it. Or if you don't get there because something happens, then you're going, well, now I have to start all over again. So what I think that people really need to start with the premise that they are the center of the universe. And I don't mean this egotistically or narcissistically, because I know those people too. And we'll save that topic for another day. But if you think about it, when you go to work for somebody, instead of saying, well, my goal is to make them successful at all costs, I'm going to give up my life, my family, everything to make this person successful or this company successful, you're looking at it the wrong way. You should take a job to do the job to earn money. But in that job, it's a learning opportunity. It's a chance to advance your skills, your capabilities. And if it doesn't fit with who you are, or it's not making you happy, I think as a lot of millennials learned, and definitely during COVID, how many people changed jobs, radically changed jobs during COVID because they're going, well, if I could die tomorrow from COVID, is this what I want people to remember me by? Is the last job I had, which I really hated. Why am I here? Why am I taking this money? Why am I doing anything? All these questions came into play. And so I think if people start off with thinking, yeah, I'm going to have a career, I'm going to go through my life, but I'm going to be me. And as I do that, yes, I will work for others. I will work with others, but I'm going to be choosing where I want to be. I'm going to be evaluating all the time. Is this really me, or if I become, in some ways a reflection of the job I have or the business I'm working for? So if we can constantly, get up every morning and go, I'm going to be the ultimate of me. I'm going to do what I can to make myself a better person, to help my community, do things along that line. I think you're going to find happiness earlier in life rather than, as in the story Khan shared, way late in life when you're going, well, okay, that was a full circle to get back to where I should have started instead of ending up there.
Yeah, and I think those are quality points. You don't know what you don't know, but you can find out in time. So, Khan.
So much to unpack from what my friend said there. So much to unpack. Let me kind of break it down a little bit from my perspective because he inspired me, and I want to share some of my thoughts from this. First of all, I love what you said, Karl. I mean, to me, if you're going to climb the ladder, make sure it's perched up against the right wall, because there's not much point in climbing a ladder when it's not taking you to where you want to go. And so that's a big part of that. And as I look at my daughter's generation and this younger generation, I'm actually very encouraged because they're discovering something that the rest of the world has kind of known for a long time. And this coming from a guy who's lived and worked on 4 different continents, from the perspective of we here in the States have this cultural mandate that we should live to work. And for the most part, the rest of the world operates differently. They work so they can live, so they can focus on the things that really matter to them. Now, granted, this is the land of opportunity, so it's hard to overlook that. And that's part of the reason why it becomes such a central point of our conversations. Because when you meet somebody here in the States, even in a social environment, inevitably within the first 3 minutes of a conversation, you're going to ask, what do you do for a living? It's not who are you, it's what do you do for a living? Not what do you believe in? What are your thoughts about this? How do you feel about life? It's what do you do for a living? And the implied piece here is that I need to measure whether I'm spending my time appropriately sitting here talking to you. Because if we're not in the same socioeconomic circles, or you can't open doors for me, why am I speaking to you? And so that tends to be part of the thinking process that's been ingrained for a lot of people. And where this became very, very evident, it wasn't even with this crisis here with COVID. I'll take it back to the financial crisis of 2008. I know a thing or two about crisis since I wrote a book about this whole thing. And so from that perspective, I look at it, and I had a lot of clients that I worked with at the time. And I had people coming to me struggling with their identity crisis, Karl. You're absolutely right, because they lost their job, and all of a sudden they lost their identity because they were their business card. And that was so hard for so many people to be able to accept and understand, because they did not have a sense of self outside of their work, outside of their job title. And that's why they were so committed to climbing that ladder, because they thought that that was improving themselves as a person. They thought that they would be more successful, more of whatever, because they were going up, and that promotion became a validation that they were more successful, that they should be happier, that they should be all of these different things. And if there's one thing that these recent crises have taught us over the last almost 2 decades, even more, I mean, we cannot take things for granted. We really need to ask this. Don't just go with things. Ask the question. Search. Find out for yourself, what is it that really makes you happy? What's really going to make you the person that you need to be? Because the best 2 days in your life are going to be the day you come into this world and the day you figure out why.
Perfect. I love that. Could have listened to it for another hour, honestly. And, what comes to mind is thinking of all the successful people I had a chance to meet, work with, and actually be partners with. And, what was amazing? They always had a lot of time. And because of that, they ended up doing more ventures and diving into more things. And some people got into charity, some people got into more business. But the key thing they had is their confidence and trust in themselves, and more importantly, their ability to trust and have confidence in others. Well, I say my partner created, I think it was 120 millionaires through his career. And this is during the 60s and 70s, when $1 million really was a lot of money. And everything he did was he took 51%, and he brought somebody in for 49 or less and trusted them, but it gave him more time. So giving was gaining. And it also had people who that was their whole focus when he didn't want it to be his whole focus. And, how's a guy accumulate what would be considered probably $1 billion today when somebody else would have quit at 100 million or at 10 million, right? That's a lot of money. But he wasn't into the money. He was into creating opportunity, driving towards the finish line, and coming out great. One thing he told me, he was in World War II, actually. And after World War II, Europe was so cheap. And he decided every year he would take him and his family somewhere foreign, a different country, for a month a year. And he'd take a whole month off, and he told me about every but 3-4 countries. He went on safaris, he went to different places. And he said, I came back so refreshed and so charged up that that month didn't cost me anything. It actually benefited the next 11 months.
Yeah.
And until people understand, hey, you can get ahead of yourself. And that's a challenge for people, is they try to do too much too soon. And if they would just allow it to play out, right? You do your part and let the world come to you in a sense. So there's different strategies and philosophies. And most of them were very, very simple people. Most of them were self-made. It was buy low, sell high, have a paid up inventory, have cash in the bank. And that's what they had to get them through the day. Too many people are over leveraged. They're throwing everything at something all the time with the same intensity. When sometimes you did enough, let the bake cake or the cake bake, whichever the two is, and enjoy yourself. Why wait till the finale when you get that prize to feel worthwhile? Why not enjoy the process? Why not measure things? And knowing that if you're good, you'll be good in whatever you do. And if you got lucky, then be grateful for what you had when you had it. Everything will eventually come to its proper balance with time in the marketplace. But, how many people said, I miss my whole kids growing up. I could have done so much more and it wouldn't have hurt that much, and then you really have to wonder, what were your intentions and purpose to begin with? Did you come in feeling that way and you just followed it? So, and I think that's where individuals like Cohen, like Karl, like myself, especially looking back, have opportunities for wisdom that we can share, and we enjoy it. There's nothing I enjoy more than someone who really appreciates what I have to say to them, and takes the time, and it makes you want to do more. And also, your legacy continues to stay alive after you're gone based on the people you touched, based on the people who are now saying your sayings, telling your story, Con, and also remembering the people in the past who opened the door for you, and you're standing on their shoulders. So I think gratitude is so important. Be thankful for what you have, not fearful of what you're not going to get or what you could have got. That's too much scorekeeping. That's majoring in the minors, and it never seems to work. So, Karl, looks like we're covering a lot of ground fast. No hiccups here. What's your next way of taking us up the next rung of the ladder?
Well, I do think that if a person makes themselves the center of their attention, they're not losing, as Con correctly described, they're losing their identity in their job. I think that is one of the biggest things. And as Con described it, the job is to support your life, not be your life. And yet I think this is a common failure in our American culture and the way we do business, because we then, when we work with our employees, we work with our teams, people go, well, give one up for the Gipper or whatever the phrase is. And you're like, okay, but are we doing it for ourselves? Are we doing it for somebody else? Is there mutual benefit coming out of this some way? Yes, if I'm employed by somebody, if I'm engaged by somebody, I want to give them my best effort. But at the same time, if they ask me to do something that's stupid or unethical or even illegal, then you have to draw the line and go, why are you doing that? Why do you feel the need to, basically disregard other people, disregard the law, disregard things that really aren't good for you in the long run? Anybody who thinks that breaking the law is a good idea hasn't watched any TV recently or realized that sooner or later they do catch you and go down that path. So I think it's good for people to take the time, like you mentioned, take a month off, or even taking a day off, or even in, I know in Regis Jesuit philosophy, which I worked with for a number of years, every day during the day, you should have a moment of discernment, which is as I looked at it, is step back and ask yourself, is this really what you should be doing right now, today? And too often the answer is no. This is not the best use of my time. This is not moving me down the road. It's not helping anybody else. I'm just kind of going through the motions. And if you find yourself doing that, then you need to reconsider maybe your job, your life, where you're at, where you're going, reset your goals. But somewhere in here, you've got to be monitoring yourself. You've got to be evaluating yourself fairly, friendly, because some things are still going to be hard. Some things are still going to require you to do things you're uncomfortable with. Anytime you do something new, you're putting yourself in a zone of discomfort, even for people like me who do it day in and day out. There's a bit of discomfort, a little bit of fear as we're going, well, okay, here we go again. We're going to go down the rabbit hole and see what happens here. But as you work through that, I think that you can come to realize who you really are. You'll do a much better job of looking at everything around you and saying, hey, like Harvey said, yeah, I've got a great successful show. I've got a gazillion viewers, watching my show, but I'm going to take a day off and everybody's going to let me do that because this is a day with my son. And that's the right answer. That's the correct way of looking at the world. And I think, as an American culture, we need to rethink a lot about how we go about doing that.
Yeah, that sure reminds us of things that we forget sometimes, Con.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about the factors of success and that time and everything else and where we spend it. And interestingly enough, this past week and especially this weekend, I had a number of contacts from people that in the past that my former players, I've mentioned this to you before. I've spent a lot of my time coaching young kids soccer. And that's typically where the coach con comes from, even though I coach executives. But it's mostly because I work with the kids. And to me, having those contacts from former players or from families of those former players, reaching out to me, checking on me, letting them know how they're doing, it reminds me of how I defined success during my tenure as a coach. And it's not about the wins and losses. I've probably lost as much as I've won game-wise and X's and O's and everything else. It's about, how did I make the kids feel? Did I offer them something? Did I offer them life lessons that will take them forward? When they come to me and they see me in the field and they run up to me and they give me a big hug or shake my hand and say, how are you doing, coach? Thank you. Because I realized that they still love the game. They had a positive experience. It's something that shaped them as people. And that, to me, having that kind of impact on people, that to me is true success. And whether we do that through mentoring, through coaching, through leading others, through working with people, through simple interactions with people. The case in point of your grandson, Don, the difference that he may have literally saved a girl's life, because sometimes people, all they need is one person to care, one person to say yes to them. And that, to me, is an amazing success. If we can do that for people, if one life can breathe easier because of us, that's success. And we can look at things and really know that we're making a difference. And that, to me, is a big way of how we can define success. Are you making that difference for yourself and other? I mean, my good friend Karl, even though he deals with finances and money and fundraising, he knows it better than anybody. When people strive for money and they identify money as the success piece, it's never about the money. It's what that money represents. That's why when he gets to know people, he doesn't just hand out money. He gets to know people because he wants to understand what's behind that. What's behind the need to raise capital or to get the money or to have that success? Because that money represents something. It could represent freedom and time. It could represent security and safety. It could represent acknowledgement and the fact that I feel like I've arrived, and that's what I'm striving for. Whatever it is, that money is never about the money. It's always about what it represents and how we define success. So once again, I'll bring it back to our original starting point. How do you define success? Ask yourself that question. Really spend time with yourself and understand it, not just once, but many times, because over time, that definition of what success is may very well change.
Yeah, you make so many great points along with Karl. What reminds me is you can put together a life and a career that brings all those elements together.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to be siloed. You know, I was fortunate. I only worked one job when I was 15, never worked for anybody again. And I started the business with my wife for 8 years. We worked shoulder to shoulder. And as soon as we had our first child, she decided her career was going to be raising kids. And she's probably the best mother and grandmother I ever had a chance to be with. But I had the opportunity not only to start the business the first 8 years with my wife, but the last 8 years with my daughter. And she actually assumed the same role. I wouldn't let the kids work there until they worked somewhere else and understood what work was and what it was to work for someone else. But every afternoon, me and my daughter would take a 30-minute walk. And just to talk, she was in charge of HR and a lot of recognition programs. And it was fun. And it was fun for her. And then my son, I would take to lunch almost every day when I went out with reps or whoever, got a chance to meet him and see him. And they both went off and and they are still doing incredible things. And they're both financially secure, you know, and self-sufficient because they understood the reality of working in a different environment versus you do this and then you do that. Well, sometimes you do this and you never get to doing that. Why not integrate it, incorporate it where it's a lifestyle business, right? Where you're getting and that's what working for yourself can do. It gives you time freedom, may not give you financial freedom, may not build success, but you know, it's not how much you make, it's who you become in what you're doing. And if you're bettering yourself, bettering the people around you, to me, that's success. It's too easy to discount, oh, I didn't hit my target. Well, that was just a target. What's your next target, right? And you know, do people genuinely enjoy seeing you, being with you? And obviously you're creating value and supporting others. And there's some there's unselfish selfishness and selfish unselfishness you can bring into the party. But, you know, I love the discussion about success because it's not as easy to define as most people would like to believe. Some people are academics. Their whole reason for being is to learn, to write, to share, to be in an academic environment. The challenge is most people haven't tested or sampled enough to know what they're good at. Usually if your dad's a doctor, you become a doctor. If your grandfather was a doctor, that's the road you're going to take. And it makes sense. I mean, how many baseball players are the sons of great baseball players? Why? Because they were exposed to it all their life. They had somebody there to mentor them and support them. But again, it works the other way. How many people became barbers and became the happiest people in the world? Never made a lot, but found a way of living without having to make a lot. So lowering your bar of what it takes to be happy and being grateful goes a long way. And listening and being around people like Karl and Cohen, because you could be so sure of yourself until someone starts telling you about things about what you're thinking. And all of a sudden you start depreciating it. You could buy the nicest shirt in the world. And if the first comment is, oh my God, how did you pick that out? All of a sudden that's just a shirt, right? All of a sudden that shirt doesn't have as much meaning to you as it would have, and vice versa. So I think just taking out, the last thing I'd like to say, have a sense of humor. I think a sense of humor will get you through so many things, you know, that you can just, it's laughable. How does 1 in a million happen to me? Right? And you can feel like the scorned person. You could feel like, what a joke this is. And you can always, you know, one thing I realized, I know we're almost at the top of the hour, is what is vital to you, and then there's a separation between everything else. Like I say, I went through a challenging time in the 80s, and getting out of work was like just crawling out of there. Sometimes things were so challenging. And one day I remember opening the door from my garage, and both kids were like 2 and 5, and they both grabbed a leg and started jumping up and down, and my dog started barking, and Ann was in the kitchen making dinner. At that time, I had a revelation. I said, I'm the richest man in the world. I said, how do you beat this? You know, and then things started to change, and that was early on, but it took them being who they were to help me become better at what I should have been. And you know what I did after that? I respected everybody else's life in the business. When I heard somebody needed something, I was the first one to go to them. You know, I heard someone passed away and, you know, you might need some help with a plane ticket. Or I heard this is happening. And I told everybody, as valuable as you are, we can spare you for a couple hours if there's something going on in your world, right? If there's a big game your kids are at, you shouldn't be here. You know, if there's something important to you, let us help you with it. Because those are the fringe benefits that are personalized and important. Just throwing money and benefits, those become entitlements after a while. So with that, we're already at top of the hour. Con, last thoughts?
No, you hit it on the head, my friend. It's define success for yourself, understand what it is, and pursue it. Because at the end of the day, you deserve to be happy.
So true. So true. And everybody has that opportunity within themselves. Karl?
Yeah, so everybody should remember that being successful is a skill, and defining your success is going to change over time because your skills improved, and it's adapting to where you're at each and every day as you move through your life. So keep working at it, start early and often, and do it continuously, and your definition of success will evolve. It will become better, and it will also fit the moment where you're at and what you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. And with that said, want to thank the audience, want to thank Karl, want to thank Con, and look forward to having you back tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be a very interesting get-together. We've got Beverly and a new lady, Michelle B. Griffin, who is also into women's empowerment, has her own live stream, has her own podcast, very successful. So happy to have her join. On Wednesday, looks like we've got Dave here, and then Thursday we've got Kelly with Jason. So I want to thank everybody for making this what it is and allowing us to do what we do and learn and grow. And with that said, go out and make this a special week and become more successful.